How's that? I'll just shout. Madam President, Dr. Wilson, Madam Mayor, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen. What an honour it is to be here to describe to you the many talents and very few, very tiny little flaws of the ladies amongst us tonight. Gentlemen, those of you that have wives and partners, do you remember the first time that you fell in love? You were head over heels, lost your appetite, refused invitations to football matches just to be with your girlfriend. Put your hand up if you want to comment. It's all too long ago, isn't it? All too long ago. There is a but, of course. When love struck, did you ever think of the likely cost? In pounds and euros, in career choices squandered, in grossly expensive baby buggies and prams, in multiple children, in phone bills, even possibly sequestration and bankruptcy? I'm sure not, which is probably a good thing. It's likely that money was far from your mind. It is, of course, an interloper and becomes a crucial and secret part of our marriages and relationships. Burns studied the relationship between love and life and money. And in his poem, Lines Written on a Banknote, he spoke to the note. And I have here the oldest one I could find, which is a 10-bob note. Weigh worth thy power, thou cursed leaf, fell source of all my woe and grief. For lack of thee I've lost my lass. For lack of thee I scrimp my glass. I see the children of affliction, unaided through thy cursed restriction. Burns had a talent for evoking pity better than any modern tabloid editor. We can genuinely picture the children of affliction in the latter days of the 18th century and imagine the passion he felt for their suffering. Anyway, back to money, the root of all evil, as Timothy described it in the Bible. I find that spending money can be difficult in our house. The main reason is that when faced with a task that involves money, communications start to get a bit tricky. Women and men speak different languages. They sound the same, but they're not. I'll give you an example. A man might simply say, "We've run out of bread," to which you'll get the reply, "Do you expect me to wave a magic wand?" Trying to speak more clearly, he might say, "We've run out of bread, so I'll go and get some," to which you'll get the reply, "Make sure it's before Christmas." So he might try again and say, "We've run out of bread, so I'll go and get some in less than 10 minutes, to which you'll get the reply, "Make sure it's not the cheap stuff by the checkout." Finally, he will learn to fully submit and say, "We've run out of bread, so I'll go and get some in 10 minutes, and I'll buy the most expensive, freshest wholemeal bread in the shop, Kettle." Burns went on to say to the banknote, I'll wave it, you haven't seen it for a while, "For lack of thee, I leave this much-loved shore, never perhaps to greet old Scotland more." These sentiments are known to those womenfolk who faithfully followed and sometimes led, as we've heard described this evening, in the pilgrimage to seek work here in this beautiful county of Derbyshire. And don't forget Canada, America, Australia and New Zealand, who have benefited from our faithful travelling wives and partners. The work of caring and providing for children is, of course, one of the highest ideals that our womenfolk follow. Children can sometimes understand more about what makes the world go round than we do, however. 3 boys were in the playground bragging about their fathers. The first boy said, "My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper, he calls it a poem, and they give him £50. The second boy said, "That's nothing. My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper, he calls it a song, and they give him £100. The third boy said, "Well, I've got you both beaten. My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper, he calls it a sermon, and it takes 8 people to collect all the money." of Burns's earnings happened in 1788. Peter Stewart of the Oracle, a London evening paper, became an admirer of Burns' poems through the 1786 Kilmarnock edition that I think Dr. Wilson mentioned. With a new evening paper in his hands, he was eager to find contributors. So he wrote to Burns offering him for communications to the paper a small salary, quite as large as his excise office emoluments. Burns refused and made contributions for nothing, other than a copy of the paper itself. This may have been because Burns' most profitable publication was the first Edinburgh edition of his poems, published the year before in 1787, for which he earned £855, a very tidy sum in those days. Anyway, modern authors about relationships can, of course, be worth referring to on this subject. And I have a few quotes now from the best-selling book about garden sheds by C.T. Gray. It's called 50 Shades of Grey. It's on Amazon, by the way, at $4.99. And I have a few quotes from it for you. "I'm a very naughty girl," she said, biting her lip. "I need to be punished. So I invited my mother to stay for the weekend." "We tried various positions, front to back, on the side, up against the wall, but in the end, we came to the conclusion that the bottom of the garden was the only place for a very good shed." And the last one. "Are you sure you can take the pain?" she demanded, brandishing her stilettos. "I think so," I gulped. "Here we go then," she said, and showed me the receipt. He was to it's on this table. Dads are usually better than mums at explaining money to kids. Did you hear the one about little Archie? He wanted to go to the zoo and pestered his parents for days. Finally, his mother talked the reluctant father into taking him. "So how was it?" his mother asked when they returned home. "Great," little Archie said. "Did you and Daddy have a good time?" asked his mother. "Yes, Mum, Daddy really liked it too," exclaimed little Archie. "Especially when one of the animals came home at 30 to 1. Burns had many a sharp word for those men chasing money, though. Here's a new compliment, especially for the ladies to remember. Gardner Balmackie, in a letter to Mrs. Dunlop, was described by Burns as a stupid, money-loving dunderpate. I don't know what I put that in for. I think it was just to give you ladies something to remember. A stupid, money-loving dunderpate. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I thought with all the fuss about the new Bond movie, I would allow Burns to have the last word on the relationship between money and love. Instead of making up songs about diamonds being forever, in his poem, Yon Wild Mossy Mountains, Burns eloquently compares the shine of a diamond to his lassie's eye. "To beauty, what man but morn yield him a prize, in her armour of glances and blushes and sighs, and when wit and refinement he polished her darts, they dazzle our een and they fly to our hearts. But kindness, sweet kindness, in the fond sparkling ee, has lustre outshining the diamond to me, and the heart-beating love as I'm clasped in her arms, oh, these are my lassie's all-conquering charms." Gentlemen, please be upstanding. I give you a toast, the Lassies.